Welcome back to the 16th edition of Marketing Conclave, organized by IAMAI and powered by Z5. Our next session is a panel on the creative. We welcome our moderator, Ms. Chaaya Baradhwaaj, founder, managing director at BC Webwise, followed by our esteemed panelists, Mr. Rishi Kakar, Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer, Kokuyo Camlin, Mr. Shouvik Roy, President at Ogilvy, Mr. Rajdeepak Das, Chief Creative Officer at Burnett, and Mr. Sukanta Das, CEO, Firefox Bikes. Welcome, everyone. Over to you, Ms. Baradhwaaj.
Thank you so much, Javisha, for that introduction. Really great to have such a great team. We were all just chatting, and Javisha was very worried. Are we going to go live with all the camaraderie we were exchanging? And she was, Rajdeepak was warning her that ye crime patrol nahi ho jaye, Savdhan India nahi bolna chahiye. So I just hope that all of you will have fun in our session. And I hope I do too. So yeah, since we have just 40 minutes and we do need to discuss serious stuff also, and primarily, so I'll just, jump in straight into, some of the key things we wanted to discuss. So yeah, to, start off with, of course, this is IAMI. We are talking about, while we talk about power of creativity, digital is, of course, at center stage. It has become center stage in many organizations, most organizations. So, if we could just start off, and maybe, Shouvik and Rajdeepak can, maybe also tone down and come down a little bit more serious, because I'll probably shoot this first, topic of discussion towards them. And of course, we have a CEO. You see, today we have CEOs. We have a CEO here on our panel and a CMO on our panel. And today they are taking such keen interest in digital content, in digital creative messaging. So my first, of course, something that is really a question on top of everybody's head is digital having an impact on creativity?
Sure. Should I go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think the short answer to you, yes, having its impact on creativity. I think it's making a lot of excellent people very, very nervous. What's happening is sometimes, what we start taking what we don't know very seriously, and really don't try to anchor ourselves into what we know. So I've seen some exceptional creative talent around us who have got very nervous with this entire business of this. I'm sure Rajdeepak is not one of them. That's why he's here on the panel, in a digital panel, talking to us, right? For me, if I look at it just stepping out of the box, I just feel that while one fine piece or crafting one fine piece of creative output together, now everybody is trying to see how the pieces work together. So it's about many pieces, how it makes sense. So I think that's the difference in the shift that it has made. The second part of it is that the entire connection, I think the connection of technology to human behavior is something that everybody is desperately trying to make. So you hear a lot of words like customer journey, where are we in the funnel, how are we connecting? These are words that we're discussing on an everyday basis. 50% of the people probably have some kind of understanding, and the other 50% people are really faking it. And it's very difficult to catch who's doing what, because actually 100% of them are pretty clueless, including me, including people here. So the thing is that finally, while digital is changing this landscape, of how creative is looked at, I personally believe that it's the deeper connection that matters. And I think at the soul of it, it's still pretty much the same. And we sometimes feel that the abundance of choices is giving us maybe fleeting glimpses of what we call creativity, which is not really at the soul of it. I think the bigger piece still remains relevant. So while, yes, it is changing, but at the core of it, it's still the same.
So,
yeah,
I think what Shouvik says is a very, very interesting point, but it's like, it's changing. It's drastically changing. I think when we started this conversation and the end of the conversation, 40 minutes, there will be something new must have come out, and we have not seen something like that before. in that 40 minutes, something new has come out. And trust me, and that's what is going on. Things are changing that fast. Saying that, like, if you look at it, it's the things have moved from one screen to actually multi-screens now. And the best ideas or the best communications are happening when you combine the multi-screen and you have one story. And I'm talking about either it multi-screen or multi-touch points, doesn't matter whatever it is. And it all starts with one idea or one goal of solving the human problem for the client, and how we find the touch points. I think that's going to change. And when you're thinking of touch points, it could be anything. Now they said like this, like there was a time we knew that कि रात 9 बजे prime time पे आखिर हम लोग ये चलाते हैं, ये आर्ट चलाते हैं, 1 मिनट का चला लेंगे या 45 सेकंड का चला लेंगे, बात बन जाएगा. 10 दिन के लिए चलाते हैं, फिर उसके बाद ना 30 सेकंड कर देंगे उसको, उसके बाद 25 सेकंड कर लेंगे, तो 6 महीने का ब्रांड बन जाएगा. Sorry, the funny part is no one is watching that channel now, right? Because there are actually, if you look at the 200 channels, there is Netflix, there is Amazon Prime, there is all the platforms available there, there is everything. And so literally the prime time is divided into 24 hours.
Completely agree on this, Rajdeepak. That's how our traditional media plans used to be made.
Right, 24 hours में हो गया. I mean, now we are waiting for someone in the toilet or in the bus. The prime time has happened for you. Okay. Now the guy is not watching only your ad or your communication, because there are 10 things happening around him. So now you have to. It's like the naughtiest kid in that class who have to make sure that you have to get the note. You will be noticed by your teacher. So what can you do in that world to get noticed? And whatever either you bust a cracker in that, or you create a story by going to principal's room, or you be the best studious guys. Now your thing is how we tell a story or how we impact someone's life, because it's not about 30 seconds anymore. It's about how you impact someone's life or tell the message with all the weapons that we have. And that's how change is happening fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
So
agree and echo what both Shouvik has said and Rajdeepak has said. I think the way I look at it in terms of how digital is changing creativity, and I've lived this journey with all of you, is that on one hand, digital is definitely challenging creativity. The whole concept of how a creative should look like, what it should deliver is getting challenged because of the plethora of information which is available on digital and what we do with that.
Yeah.
The second thing which I also see, interestingly, is that it is also nurturing creativity. The whole fact that the barriers to creative success has got dissolved. The scope wherein you are getting instant feedback on any creative you're doing. Conversations that you're generating on any creative release that you're doing. It's so instantaneous and it's so stimulating that it leads to more conversations. And I think creativity is growing. Yesterday when we were talking, when Rajdeepak spoke about stories. So I have a small story to add here, and it just comes to my mind. And he spoke about bursting a cracker. So sometime back, I remembered that my marketing team and my agency came up to me saying that they would want to do a bicycle creative on ice cream day. So I completely rubbished it at the first go. I said, what does a bicycle have to do on an ice cream day? And there's no relevance, I just a few days back, or sometime later, they again came back to me, but because of paucity of time, we couldn't take it. But a few days back, they again came back to me with an opportunity of doing a bicycle creative on chocolate day. So just because we persisted, I said, okay, go ahead. The challenge is that I need you to kind of make a do. It can't be just a wish post. But what came out was absolutely fantastic. I've never seen something like this. So it was the most engaging post that I had a couple of months back for the whole month, wherein a bar of chocolate was seen on the ad, and it said that 8 kilometers of cycling is equal to 1 bar. Okay?
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. So I think the whole idea of being relevant at a time when people are wanting to fix came out so beautifully with this particular creative. That's what I mean by conversations with a challenging creativity and also nurturing.
So in fact, Chaaya, I will just tell you an interesting story on this, a quick one. So I remember that. So once I told this in the Facebook thumb stopper. I said we're talking to the client, and we're saying कि इस one creative was talking, sir, film ना ऐसा open होगा. आप देखिए, ये देखिए, पहाड़ी है, ऐसा he's like doing this. And this client is a friend, he's a friendly guy. He says, भैया film ऐसा नहीं, film ऐसा open होना चाहिए. ऐसा नहीं है, ऐसा. And that's what it is now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes what happens is that, we, at least I've seen that while, digital, of course, forcing us to be a lot, think differently, the ideas that you talked about, there are different avenues to express that creativity which has come about. But the focus many times goes on to the tools that are available to us, and we have forgotten the customers in many parts. So focus on tools versus focus on customers. I think forever we have to remain focused on the customers and how they are using it, what they are using it. Don't just create an idea because you think it's a great idea for, let's say, Instagram. If your customers are not engaging with it, why even do it? It sounds very elementary that everybody should do it, but I have seen that happening over and over again with very seasoned people saying, I want an Insta idea or an Insta story idea or something, or a Snapchat filter when you're talking to an audience which is very different. So these are conversations that are happening because it's sexy to do it. If I'm a brand, I want a Snapchat filter. What is it doing to your brand? What is it doing to your customer? I think those questions are very fundamental and they need to be asked. The other part, which is about how, if you look at us, we are the biggest customers and the most critical customers, I think, when we consume. So if you look at us, there is so much digital distraction around us. There is so many things. I mean, if you look at the work from home scenario, we are more engaged with our phones and devices than we were ever before. I think we have all downloaded at least 2 or 3 new apps in the last 4 or 5 months compared to the last 2 or 3 years, because we are finding newer ways to engage because we can't do anything outside of home. So that's our avenue. That's our, like, let's say that's the tail that we are kind of seeking. Now, with that kind of digital distraction, I'm talking about professionals in our industry, the where we know that creativity is a part of natural thinking, right? With so much distraction, a lot of that gets blocked. So a lot of sameness starts coming into the thinking. And to your point, Shukanto, this thing of festivals marrying to brands, uh, I've seen that happening to at least 20 brands. 20 brands that I consume, because you're suddenly compelled to be creative, and you're trying to, some of them work, like the example that you give work, but there are many that don't work. They're still there for the sake of it, because I have an Insta page and I
Yes.
have to do something on Ganesh Chaturthi. So I
Force
will
fit.
force
Yeah.
fit something, right? So I think somewhere we'll have to understand that creative is far more in the power of creative is far more than what these channels allow you to do. I think that's something that we forget. We are driven by the tools, we are driven by the channels, but are we really exercising the power of creative? I think that's a question that I have for all of you. I mean, if you feel
I think actually I can, I can just say something. I think Chaaya started off with saying digital and creative. But if you really step back and you see, entire communication space has gone through an evolution for, maybe over 100 years. There used to be a time when there was outdoor, and then there was print, and then there was television. And creative has always adapted itself to the medium of the day, right? And I think it's nothing but an evolution of that same thought that we are today trying to adapt to the another medium. And tomorrow, like Raj also said, that there will be a third medium or a fourth medium which will really come up. I think it's important that as creatives or as client, we need to focus on what is unchanging about this and not what is changing, because we can't predict the change. But what is unchanging is that, a human need will always be that unchanging part of the campaign. A human insight will always be an unchanging part of the campaign. And if there is something to really take forward, it is to be confident that if we are spending our time in uncovering that human need, we will be able to adapt to the medium of the day. I think that's something which is noteworthy. I felt. And regarding what also happens is the current mediums impose on us certain what will I say, certain conditions, and something which Raj mentioned as a cracker, or Sukanto mentioned as the bicycle campaign, is I'm seeing increasingly, while brands are trying to seek differentiation is no longer relevant because differentiation is being very easily copied. What brands should focus on is distinctiveness, and distinctiveness is different from differentiation. It could be a quirk, it could be something which is a hook which kind of leaves you with a memory of the brand, a positive association with the brand. So you're no longer looking for differentiation because it's easily copied. But if you're distinctive, if you're noteworthy, even in a quirky or a good way, I think that's what brands should strive for in this era.
Absolutely. So,
Says that to
please.
consistency, actually. You're looking at a consistent way of doing things more than, I think that's what you mean by distinctiveness. I think that's what really
Holding a particular space in the consumer's mind. I think, creating your space for yourself is becoming, more and more important in a otherwise cluttered and Me Too scenario. And I think, from
I
what
have
we
a
can
question.
definitely,
I have a question.
yeah,
So,
yes.
with Rajdeepak, how do you think, with trends changing so fast, consumer preferences in this digital age and the digital medium changing so fast that even before you are able to execute ideas, at times they pass on. So, how do you have this consistency that we are talking about as far as brands are concerned? Is that still relevant, or brands need to, adapt themselves to the changes quickly? And consumer preferences. What's your take?
So I think Sukanta, there is more and more I'm seeing there is two kind of brands are building. So let me tell you why I'm seeing two kind of brand or two kind of marketing brands I'm seeing. One brand who leave their values and keep their values, what they stand for, and they've been standing for last of 30 years or 40 years, but still they are young and they're actually finding a new angle to doing that. Like a couple of brands, like let's talk about that's the most boring brand to talk about in every meeting is Nike. Let's talk about Nike. Like they are because look at in fact any brand. Let's talk about the good brands. Let's talk about Cadbury's, for instance. Let's talk about brands like even HDFC Life, or there are a lot of brands who keep their values, what they stand for. Even or a lot of PNG brands. Let's talk about Tide, for instance, or Ariel. They've been there the country for 20 years or 30 years. But if you see that they have been evolving about what they stand for in a very much what is relevant to us now. So the context is very important. So with every context, more than the content they are worried about, they're worried about the context. What's happening now? How can we be part of it? How can we be part of it? That's your one side of brand. So you have to be very careful about which side you fall in. Then comes the other kind of brand that I'm seeing. Boss, listen, it is we don't have what thing this, what do you call that? COVID has taught us there is no long-term plan. Okay, कल तक next week तो क्या होने वाला है कि तुम जिंदा रहो, तुम्हारा brand काम करे तो चल रहा है. Brands be there, brands won't be there. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth is that. Right. So let's live now. A lot of startups are going for that. Don't tell me about a 5 years plan. Tell me about what is the plan for the next 6 months. Yes, 6 months, okay, tell me what the next 6 months plan or next 2 months plan. If I survive my money for the next two months, it works for me. So a lot of brands are actually looking at saying that what's happening now for my life. Can I survive the next 2 months? Am I in people's mind for the next 2 months? Okay, that's over. Next 2 months, can I survive and everything? So they lot of work on the trends, what's happening now. Do me something that works for now. Do me something that's work for tomorrow. That's it. So you have to be a brand to understand which cycle of your life you are in. The time has gone. Like I was joking, I said time has gone. Planner sitting into a room and say, sir, ये देखिए, ये आपका 5 साल का business plan है. And the marketing guy saying, nodding yes. I don't think marketing guys are the CTOs thinking 5 साल का plan मेरे को दो. Tell me what's happening tomorrow, next quarter. Tell me the ROI for my year for the next quarter. Give me that as a creative guy. He said yes. Okay, then do the plan.
I think what is from where it is stemming, at least as the way I see it, is a lot of it is coming in because of the access to the data that we have got. I'll give you another example. So I keep doing this word cloud analysis of the search engine terms on which a brand like Firefox gets searched. So just pre-COVID, when we ended in March, I was having a chat with the agency in terms of how we position Firefox as an adventure brand.
Yeah.
By the time we opened up, the word cloud around which Firefox was getting moved from adventure to fitness and health. So I had to completely recast my communication plan to fitness and health rather than continue to remain on adventure, because it would have found a taker at that point in time. So those are the kind of experiences that we are having with digital and the creatives which are flowing from the digital.
Yes. So, this is very interesting, when we come into, before we come to data, just to recap on what we just discussed, very important point was established by Shouvik that we cannot, miss on the evocativeness, that one key messaging that the brand stands for, which today in this rapid, proliferation and high frequency of messaging being relevant for today, tomorrow is definitely getting at risk. We are having a lot of messaging happening, and that can go at risk. And maybe one could have some game plan, some guidelines on having your key messaging. And yes, now with so much of data, so much of interaction, I think especially, Kokuyo Camlin has done a lot of campaigns wherein the consumer is also co-creating those creatives for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you have got your key messaging out,
Yeah.
but the consumer is, then giving his definition of that. That's how all these platforms like TikTok, Chingari and all are becoming so popular also, where brands are having the consumer at the center of it, creating those messages for you. So that's now, but coming to what Sukanta has said on, him using, leveraging data. And this is, I think, for a CEO and a CMO, and not just the digital manager or digital head alone looking at what is happening. I'm sure Sukanta and Rishi, you all are looking at a lot of data in points. And and while you're talking about data, if you have looked at, artificial intelligence yourself and seen how that can drive, you can, just share your experiences on that.
Okay, maybe I can just share something. Once I was in a conference where I heard Sir John Haggerty speaking, and he was talking about this data-driven marketing and artificial intelligence. And he said that in the olden days, we call it research. That is exactly the same thing, right? So in the olden days, you also had research. The objective of research was to find out more about your customers. Your quantitative research talked about what personas, in how large was the persona size that you could tap into that market, right? This is just a more efficient way of doing what was earlier done in an inefficient research environment. So the role of data, I think, is great in terms of carving out your audiences, and data plays a great role in that. But the communication has to be driven by the insight. The communication has to be driven by what the brand stands for, right? But it helps to have data about the audience so that we can match the creative to the audience. So I think that right now, not so much in creation of the creative, but in terms of assessing what your audience really is or needs, is the role of data, right? I think that's where data is really playing a much bigger role. So I think that is where I see data really is. In terms of artificial intelligence, what really happens is that artificial intelligence takes a number of inputs, okay, puts it in some kind of a black box, and there is an output which says that these customers are most likely to buy your products, right? And it runs basically correlations after correlations and comes out. If you try to open the black box and see what is it, what is the formula for doing this, you'll be unable to really do this. For example, in my previous assignment as head of marketing, to understand which kind of financial product will be bought by which customer, we had 1,000 inputs that went into for a single customer, and you could never, into a black box which ran a random forest algorithm to come out with something, and you could never pinpoint why is this customer more likely to buy. All you would get is a list which tells you this customer is more likely to buy. So I think as machines get more powerful, the data crunching and its ability to predict, which is the predictive and analytics part, is going to be much better. For example, we are actually using artificial intelligence and all this right now in our daily life. When an app recommends you will like this kind of song, it is actually using artificial intelligence to put you part of some cohort or some group who listens to that kind of music, and they're running this algorithm all the time. When you're using Google Maps, there's an artificial intelligence at the back which is kind of mapping out where people are at various points in time who have their GPS on, and it's being able to convert that data into usable information. But it's based on a very simple human insight that people want to get from point A to point B quickly, right? So as you see, the insight remains enduring, the need remains enduring from a human perspective, but it's just how do you apply data to make it most relevant to a particular audience. And I think that's what everybody is trying to do in a simple language, but I think people tend to complicate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sukanta, you mentioned that search insights itself have driven your positioning itself. Do you continue to do that? If your teams continue to look at these audience conversations, and do you look at this data to see what kind of messaging is going out there?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think for the brand, what I continue to measure is everything that we are doing definitely has to build salience for the brand and also bring in relevance. So on the second part, in terms of building relevance, I think it becomes extremely important that you look at what kind of audience interactions are happening, what kind of conversations are happening around the brand, and you basically build your brand communication strategy around it to remain relevant. So it is a critical part of the analysis that I do. But I like what Rishi said right now. I think in my previous assignment, once again as a marketing manager in telecom with Vodafone, so we had access to plethora of data. In fact, I could have data in terms of what exactly is Rajdeepak doing right now with his phone. But the challenge was in terms of figuring out how could I make him use
Rajdeepak immediately touched his phone. Rajdeepak immediately, if everybody observed, he said, "Oh my God!"
Don't go by phone history. Yeah? Don't go by phone history.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
Don't talk about the Tinder that I downloaded to anyone. Huh?
Yeah. And what Rishi also said about that putting in a black box kind of thing. Yes, so you have to be, use your judgment, also very much.
So what artificial
Yeah,
intelligence actually does for us is basically give us actionable insights. I think it then depends on what I call as actionable insights, and I think then you take calls basis. At the end of the day, it's still is based upon gut that you do. You take some actionable actions basis or actionable insights, and you move forward. I think to core to all of it, I think Shouvik started up and brought this conversation to the right perspective. I think when we are talking creative, we are actually talking people, human beings, and customers. I think the customers, their outlook is what matters most, and in terms of that has to be at the center point of any conversation that we are having. So whether it is even at times you get data can vary. The audience may not be exactly knowing what they are looking for, and you may build up a communication strategy around it if you don't have the pulse of your customer. I think that continues to be the core.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just wanted to add because this discussion is about creativity. So I just wanted to make a point on artificial intelligence and creativity and how artificial intelligence is supposed to enhance creativity. I mean, that it has all the basics for that. If you look at, and Rajdeepak will know it better than I do, if you look at any of the trends in the last 10 years in terms of video searches or image searches or language searches, it has just taken another level. I mean, today, there is a company, I don't know, I was thinking about, I was just reading about some days ago called Hypotenuse AI. I don't know if you've heard of it. What they do is they have like it's labs which is served to individuals where they choose the picture, and depending on the reading the picture, they will write the copy and give you 3 versions of that copy. So actually it's about, and that's the starting point. So it's already, the picture is selected for you. Some copy is already recommended to you. Now, hey, you know what? How do you take the next leap? So there are companies in the world which are already doing it. So I think AI has a huge influence and can have a huge influence on creativity. Right now, we are only looking at data as something which is like intelligence. I think what we need to look at is that how can it help it take that leap that it needs to take? Because see, one person could do one great, like what Rajdeepak was saying, one big ad, 30-second edits. One person can do a great campaign, 5 press ads, but one person can't do personalization to scale stuff. And that's where creativity gets lost. And that's where AI can help. How do you do personalization at scale, which is interesting? You can use artificial intelligence to do that. And you can do only one campaign. Maybe Rajdeepak's team just cracks one campaign. It's into an AI filter that gives you the personas and it keeps it interesting and to the point using AI. That to me is the future. And that's how AI can help creativity.
See, Chaaya, so I will tell you something very evil, maybe. Okay, I think you guys will hate me for that. I say,
Southern India, boy.
No, I'll tell you why. I'm saying, what data. The best thing about data is data helps you do what you don't want to do. So let me tell you how. Data tells you there are 20 things are there. So I say data is not helping you do what you to do. But that's everyone knows that, right? Data will tell you to what you should not do. So the chances of failure goes down drastically. You know what I mean? So I use data. I love to use that data. I say it's the greatest tool that creative can have. So you are actually working towards something. We're knowing that the failures are very less. So you know this is the zone. Get out of this zone because this has been done or this is what is happening. And now this zone I have to play. Now it's like a video game, right? You actually know this zone. I can do anything now. I can build the entire thing. So I'll tell you something. Data and creativity. So I think 1 year back when we launched Spotify in India, we did a campaign called "There's a Playlist for That." Now it was a craziest billboard campaign we did. We had 1,556 billboards all over India, and every billboard was different. And I remember when you're working on it and it says, so with the marketing team and the setting, it says here how we do it with the billboard. एक billboard का ना 4 लेते हैं और 4 को हर जगह छाप देते हैं. ठीक है, that's what we do. 5 लेते हैं, 5 को हर जगह छाप लेते हैं and बाद में language change कर देंगे. Right?
Yeah.
This is cool, यार. कुछ let's do something. Come on, you are Spotify and Spotify says you are Spotify. Give us something that is a Spotify. Because Spotify is one brand. How I think Rishi talked about the music. Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
We actually went through the data of listening the data of GPS and the mood analysis we did it and the specific location. So for instance, if I'm doing something in the Dadar, I realize what is the pinpoint of Dadar, people getting out accidentally in the something. Or in the Bangalore, which area which has got more traffic with the tweets. We just started reading the tweets. So literally every billboard was talking to them like it's a banner for them. And we're constantly changing those billboards for that. So now look at it. We are taking something which is very digital and data oriented, creating something very, very outdated, which is, or not outdated, but very, very traditional, which is a billboard. And that billboard went back into digital because people start talking about it. Because, dude, have you seen that? It's like you're talking about Warsaw. If you're in Warsaw, people will judge you as the struggling model. Now, because the guys in Warsaw will laugh at you because they know they're from Warsaw. So we are actually creating the entire world what not to do, but what to do. That helps you. Data is like, it's the best thing that you can have to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very interesting that, you know, what you can do at a one particular creative point, it be on ground, outdoor, whatever, can become really strong digital conversations.
Exactly.
And you know, and how we can further direct it. And definitely, like Shouvik mentioned, scale. When you're doing scale, then AI can really help you to serve the right messaging to the right customer, and probably now today also in creating those right messages to the right audience.
Exactly.
But you know, more the scale, because how many ads can you create? You know, already, you know, we are seeing custom ads on YouTube. So you know, now going from here, you know, because we are talking about so many digital touch points, so many multiple screens, we have moved from the TVC format to a DVC format. You know, on you know, new trends that all of you are seeing. Okay, because you're now creating text ads, you're creating, you know, for the mobile phone, primarily, of course, for the mobile phone. And even within the mobile phone, you're creating so many different formats. You know, on Facebook, you have a format, on Google, you have formats. So any, you know, if you could, you know, just, you know, share with the audience your take on it. You know, how do you bring the power of creativity into these illustrated digital media?
I think I can go first on that. Rather than saying what are the new trends, and you know, I will just give one which I feel is significant.
Yes.
And with respect to creativity and how data, creativity, and new trends are kind of, you know, coming together. I think one trend is personalization, which is how can data be used to personalize creative, so that it takes away the need for making a million creatives, but one creative given to a million people, which is unique for them. I think that is personalization is a big trend which I see. There are even now companies which are able to you're able to shoot a video, marry the video format with data, and actually have a customized video which has your name or a customized offer that's made to you through a video. You know, communication. I think the power of creativity is being unleashed through data, and you know, and it's being made more appealing to customers through personalization, because now it means that that communication which was for the masses is for me. It carries my name, it carries an offer for me, it has a relationship manager's phone number which is mine, you know, which is my relationship manager. So I think that makes it more meaningful for people. So I think that personalization for me would be the biggest trend that I see in the area of data and creativity.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks. We have about 7 minutes left, so we'll have to, Rajdeep, Shouvik, Sukanta, if you want to add to this.
So, sorry, please go.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you're right about the touch points, and you're right about various opportunities that we have to, kind of improve with the customer set. I think one of the things is that we need to understand how my customers are intersecting with those packets or things that you're saying, because there are various factors that are there. So at the point of interaction, what is it? I mean, is it like a little slider in the airport versus something like a scroll that is running somewhere else? I mean, it is each one of them will depend on the point of intersection. So therefore, if you, instead of, saying that, it's an ad which is created for mobile, that's very generic. It used to be specific 10 years ago. But now, if I'm generating something for the mobile, it's very generic. It's about what is that point of intersection? Where am I seeing it? Where is it not just physically in space, but mind space, time, etc. So I think that understanding is needed to be able to do a good job of right kind of creativity. Yeah.
So my take on this point, I've been thinking about what Chaaya said in terms of transition from PPC to PPT. The first thing which I see as a marketing manager is this, that whole euphoria about creating a great creative with that fantastic communication which was so inside out has completely changed now. So whenever I release a digital content, it gets liked, shared, or disliked pretty quickly. So the online appraisal happens almost immediately. So the digital contents, I think, are far more demanding because they have to be more customer centric. They need to be relevant to the customer because of attention span at a time wherein they are flooded with digital content is very low. So you have to make an impact, and that can only happen if you understand the pulse of the customer. It is no longer what you want to say. It is all about what the customer wants to hear from you and whether you're able to capture that. I think that's a big thing which has happened. And the whole fact that you get so much of feedback almost instantaneously keeps you on your toes. So you need to get it right. But the good thing is this: you don't spend too much money. You can you can take small steps, figure out what's working for you, and move fast. So even if you're failing, you fail fast and recover. So that's the good part.
Yes, thanks, absolutely, Sukanta. That really helps. Rajdeep, you wanted to say something?
So I think something very funny. I'll just tell you a small example that's happening. I don't know how many are happening to your life or not, maybe. So it's like understanding the human need or want, because my daughter was being, this is in my Marayat, she's 9-year-old now. So it's in the school, they're teaching what is need and what is want. Okay. And so what is the difference between need and want? So I spend a lot of time on Insta, being a creative guy, always on Insta or Pinterest, constantly. Now, because I'm on Insta constantly, Insta starts sending messages of download this video game, download this video game, and download this video game. And I don't want to play that video game. The funny part is that's the thing. Because this guy is online, you can't push me a video game that I don't play. Understand it. Why it's like it's understand. That's not a want. My need is something else. My need is maybe I'm looking at what do you call that? Certain kind of pictures or certain kind of thing. Understand that and send. Don't just send me video game because I'm spending X amount of time on Insta. Those weird video games. I think with the globalization to regionalization to localization to individualization, but still not understanding the human need will be the biggest disaster we can make as a creative.
Yes.
It's the disaster.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Raj. So in lieu of time, I want to ask one of our last questions, which was on, as of course CEOs and CMOs, you all are, you're responsible for the P&L, and ROI ultimately is important. And when we say power of creative, ultimately we are looking at ROI. Is creativity, in any way impacting the ROI? How are you looking at this?
Rishi?
See, I think we realize even more that it is only the creative campaign which does well. I think that realization is even becoming more and more strong. Because ultimately what we are, we were earlier in an era where companies were trying to build a brand and sell the brand to customers. But now we are in an era where the customer builds the brand for you, right? And if they don't want to build the brand for you, or they don't want to be part of your tribe, they unfollow you, right? So the power of creativity now is even more heightened. What ROI does for you very simply is that if your ROI is really low, you know that the problem is not in the, it's not in the media planning or it's in creative. It's some other problem that you have to fix. Maybe there's an insight problem or there's a need problem that you've totally missed. If the ROI is really below, right? But if the ROI is in the ballpark, then I think the power of creative is all that will really heighten the campaign, will help you build a tribe of loyal customers who will then go build your brand, because it is way too expensive now to go and reach out to millions and billions of customers to build your brand. You have to rely on the power of creative to excite a group of people who will take it upon them to build your tribe and make it bigger.
Yes. Thanks so much, Rishi. We are now just like sort of closing now. I think just to close, of course, through the marketing funnel, our creative messaging plays a big role. Thanks so much, everyone. It was a pleasure to have all of you. Yes, over to IMEI, Jivisha.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure the audience loved listening to all of you. We will now take a 10-minute break before we move into the next session. Stay tuned.
Thanks, everyone.